Hey everybody, it is Nathan and Jess Selove with what might be a new series. I alluded to it a little bit in a video a few weeks back regarding info dumping. So Jess, you want to tell us about what this new series is going to be all about?
We don't know exactly yet,
Yeah.
but Suzanne,
Yeah, Suzanne
Suzanne,
in the comments.
who was very charming to me, said that they would love if I just info dumped on pretty much anything, and
Yeah.
it got us to thinking about info dumping and also something that often goes along with info dumping, which is the associative thinking that autistics often have. So if you're autistic, you might have been told by people, you're so random, how do you get these thoughts? And you'll try to explain to them, like, oh no, you brought up breakfast, which made me think of Wheatie boxes, which made me think of the Olympics naturally, which made me think of Caitlyn Jenner, which made me think about, like, transgender identity and what does it mean, and like the different ways that someone can intersect their identity. And that all made sense,
Yeah.
but to someone who's not along for the ride, it might not.
Yeah.
So, what are we going to do?
So we're basically going to be combining the idea of associative thinking and info dumping to where we're going to take turns reading one of the recommendations that our listeners have provided us with as something they might want to hear us info dump about. And if it's something that we know a lot about, then we're going to try to info dump for it for about like a minute, minute and a half. And then we're going to switch. If it's something that we don't know as much about, we're basically going to try to draw some type of comparison or some type of association with something else, and then sort of explain that thought process along the way or explain the thought process afterwards.
Which happens all the time in conversations with autistics where you're saying something and then suddenly they're talking about another thing. And it's because they have heard what you've said, but they're not thinking of what can I say about this exact thing. They're trying to relate it to an interest or knowledge of theirs, to offer that for the conversation.
All right. So you ready to get started, Jess?
Yeah. Are you ready, Nathan?
Yes, let's go for it.
All right. So Chris Outdoors says, info dump, communications within an autistic relationship.
Oh, this is a good one because this is actually what I wrote my master's thesis on. So, one of the important things to understand about communication in autistic relationships is the idea of empathy. So, there are two types of empathy that have been discussed by psychologists. There's cognitive empathy and there's affective empathy. Cognitive empathy is the idea that you know what the other person is thinking and what they're feeling and what they need. Affective empathy is the idea that you want to do something in order to help them. So there's been a lot of studies that have shown that empathy within relationships, specifically among autistics, is really, really important. And basically, when it comes to autistic relationships in which both of the people in the relationship are autistic, their bonds tends to be actually a little bit stronger in the aggregate than if it's a mixed couple, so a neurotypical and an autistic. On top of that, empathy is considered to be an important part as to what makes a relationship successful. So these findings would actually suggest the possibility that the idea that autistics can't feel empathy or have trouble feeling empathy is kind of wrong, because if autistics have better relationships with each other, that would imply that because they think alike, they definitely have high levels of affective empathy, but they would also have decent levels of cognitive empathy because they know how each other's minds work. Scott Kessler says, info dump on micro ecosystems of microorganisms.
I took microbiology and I got a B.
You're gonna need to pass on this one.
No, you just scared my brain. So I took microbiology because I was going for nursing because that's what I thought I wanted to do. And it was fascinating to hear the way that my professor would deep dive into like how microbiomes exist even within us, and how they replicate, and also looking at that under a microscope was very, very, very cool. I will also say that just because a professor is enthusiastic about the subject does not mean they are excellent at putting it into a piecemeal, like sort of accessible way. So I think that I maybe would have gained a little bit more from that class if it had been a little bit more tamped down to a beginner level. But I will say that I still will hear someone talk about like bacillus and know, oh, that's the shape. That's what the shape is referring to. And also I grew, or I swabbed on an agar plate kombucha and kefir to see which one had like more probiotics. And basically what I was buying in the store, the kombucha brands that were available didn't really have that many like microbiomes. So it's hard to imagine that that's actually slipping through your body into your stomach, getting past the stomach acid and actually making it into your gut. So while I love kombucha and fermented foods rock, it's really difficult to parse out whether they're actually helping improve your gut health. And that's what I got.
So those were definitely two very fair ways to start, Mine was about something I literally wrote my master's thesis about, and hers was about something she took one class in a while back. That's the nature of this new series.
All right, Delta translation says, info dump : I see what you did there, poop emoji, and go.
So one of the things that a lot of people don't know about farts is that the reason why farts stink is because when you fart, it's actually expelling a little bit of fecal matter. So when you smell that, that poopy smell after someone farts, what's actually happening is little tiny particles of poop are just flying up into your nostrils, and that's kind of disgusting. Also, one of the things that a lot of people don't know about when it comes to poop, specifically about the appendix, there are a lot of people that assume that the appendix is an organ that is completely unnecessary and has no actual functional help. However, there's actually been some theoretical discussion within the biology community, the anatomy and physiology community, to suggest that it actually has something to do with putting out good bacteria or cleaning out bacteria in your intestines. I am explaining all of this from purely secondhand knowledge. My father explained this to me, and I am having a lot of trouble sort of regurgitating everything that he said. So nobody should be listening to this and thinking, wow, this guy is a great authority on the subject, because I am seriously just trying to remember things that my father told me 3 years ago.
Yeah, to note, not an expert on poop, just a big fan. You okay there?
That's the line of the series so far. This is Michael Enby. Info dump on info dumping. Go.
Info dumping is, as I said before, something that a lot of autistics do because we have interests. That's actually one of the diagnostic criteria for autism, is a set, specific interest. Your interests are not typically varied. They are very niche, and a lot of times what I think kind of goes unstated with that, but that most of what you know outside of those interests, you can relate to your interest. And the reason is that, number one, there's the frame. Number one, you're interested in it, so of course you're going to learn what you can about it, but also number two, this was the worst way to put my fingers up.
Yeah.
But
nobody counts like that.
Anyway, back to info dumping. It is common to kind of relate to people. I know when I get really excited because someone's brought up an interest of mine, I have to contribute. I want them to know everything I know. And that can also irritate people who are either not interested or not on the spectrum because they don't want to be lectured to by someone, even though I think it's fun. If you get a group of autistics in a room talking to each other, sometimes that can be really fun to see how the conversation moves around, because every person is going to try to spit out what they know about a subject, and then someone's going to find some little nugget in that conversation and look at it and examine it and find a way that they can bring it back. Which reminds me of the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where he's, her dad's special interest is Greece, and he is Greek and the Greek language, so he'll just say give me a word, any word, and I'll tell you how it's Greek. And that's what I think autistics do a lot. So Connor Fields says, info dump, Star Wars.
Oh, Star Wars. Okay. So things to know about Star Wars. first focus on the original trilogy. So one of the really interesting things about how Han Solo originally became how Harrison Ford got cast as Han Solo is he was actually basically just working as a carpenter behind the set. And George Lucas just kind of noticed him and was like, hey, he kind of looks like Han Solo. Hey, come over here and read for this part. And he kind of liked how he read the part, so he was like, well, congratulations, you are now Han Solo. Also, another interesting fact. The big dramatic reveal where they found out that Darth Vader was Luke's father, the actors did not actually know that was the big reveal. So like when Luke was reacting with the, no, that's not true, that's impossible, they actually didn't tell him in that scene that was the reveal. Because remember, James Earl Jones, who's the voice of Darth Vader, he voiced that later. So the guy that was actually playing the body of Darth Vader said something completely different, and they were just saying, Luke, pretend to be really surprised. The actors didn't actually know that the dramatic reveal was that Darth Vader was Luke's father until the movie actually was released later.
Okay. And see what I mean about the excitement just erupting? You might have had to turn your video down a lot. And probably put it back up since I'm going to speak at a reasonable level.
All right, so this could be the start of a new series. We definitely would appreciate some feedback on it because we don't know what this is going to end up being. We just kind of, went with an idea and just made things up as we went along.
Oh, and I know that people probably get tired of YouTuber calls to action, but if you are not someone who's going to comment, then a way of letting us know that you want to see more of these is going to have to be hitting the thumbs up button.
Yes.
I thumbs up videos all the time because I'm not going to put in the energy to put in a comment, but I will thumbs it up. So take that as you will, but if you want to see more of it, try to give that indication to us.
Yeah. Also, another kind of disclaimer that I want to go ahead and add is that nothing in any of these videos should be taken as advice from official experts, because we are just kind of saying things off the top of our head that we might be knowledgeable about, but we're purposely trying to make it so that we're just kind of saying things off the top of our head. So don't cite us as a source. All right.
Yeah. Don't cite us as a source on this.
Yeah, on this. You can cite me as a source in other videos I do, of course.
You could cite his paper.
Yeah, you can cite my paper.
It's available.
It is available
You
on
and
the
I.
UNI Scholar website.
University of Northern Iowa.
Yep, exactly. So in the meantime,
He'll be going on a book tour. Never, but...
No, never. That is today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a like, a share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Check out some of my other stuff. And if you want to support the channel in other ways, support me on Patreon. And also, I'm on Twitter, so you should follow me, @NathanSelove. And you will see me in the next one.